Disclaimer.
I felt my baby slip away, and everything went black.
My name's Danielle. I am 32 years old. Died for 8 minutes on July 14th in Birmingham, Alabama.
And what I saw changed the way I understand love, marriage, and covenant forever. Before I begin, please subscribe so more people can hear testimonies like this. I say that not to mark time, but because those numbers matter in the way my heart kept tally of every quiet disappointment. Our house was small and neat. Our life looked fine on the outside. The mail went to the same box. The dishes were washed. The sheets were folded. On the inside, everything felt like glass. Beautiful to look at, sharp to touch. At home, love was a soft thing that did not like to make noise. My husband, Marcus, loved in the way his hands could fix a leaky faucet or warm my coffee. He loved in the way he left me notes on the bathroom mirror sometimes, tiny, careful words I would find in the steam. He loved me with gestures. He did not love in the floods of feeling I had always imagined in movies. I thought that was my fault. I thought that I wanted more because I was greedy. I thought that I wanted more because I was weak. Some nights we slept back to back, each of us pretending the empty space in the middle did not exist. He would fall asleep first, breath even, like a man relieved of a burden I could not see how to name. I would lie awake feeling unloved and guilty for feeling alone. I would press my palm to my chest and count my breaths. I would count my prayers. I would whisper, "Do not leave me," and there would only be the hush of the house answering back. We fought in the quietest ways. A text left unread for hours would become a story in my head that made my stomach knot. A look that held nothing would become proof that I was unworthy. He would notice my distance and ask if I was all right, and I would say, "I am fine," and mean the opposite. I would watch him from the doorway while he washed the dishes, the light catching the line of his jaw, and I would think of all the things I held inside that I did not know how to ask for. My mouth would form sentences and swallow them back down. When I found out I was pregnant, I held the pregnancy test like it was a fragile promise. I sat on the edge of the tub and let the cold air press against my knees. I called Marcus at work, and he answered with surprise, then quiet joy that sounded like relief. He came home early that day. He stood in the doorway with his jacket still on, and he reached for me like he wanted to prove to himself this was real. He put his hands on my belly and smiled as if we had both been given something we had earned. For the first time in a long time, I tasted hope. I thought this baby could be the bridge between us. I thought a child could be the healer of all the small, persistent hurts. I thought a new heartbeat would settle the old ones. I whispered to the dark, "Lord, let this be the peace that makes us whole." I believed in a possibility that felt dangerous and holy at once. But the hope carried weight. Every bump and cramp became a test I did not want to fail. I watched every fold of Marcus's face for signs of the man I thought I had married. I watched his hands for tremors of care. I sat on the couch, belly tucked into a sweater, and waited for him to ask if I was afraid and for him to hold my fear like it was soft and sacred. He did not always get the timing right. He would say the wrong thing at the right moment, or the right thing in a tone that did not reach me. I would read into that silence until it swelled into accusation. My mother had used silence like a weapon. My childhood was stitched together with quiet lessons about survival. Do not complain, do not make trouble, hold your sorrow in and make a smile. I promised myself I would not repeat that pattern, and yet I found myself folding into it without noticing. When I felt ignored, I recoiled. When I felt scared, I did not always tell Marcus, because I did not want to be the burden once more. I carried that old training like a secret dress I never changed out of. There were mornings I would stand in front of the mirror and place my hand over my belly and try to imagine what motherhood might feel like. I would name the things I wanted to do differently. I would vow to be softer than I had been taught to be. I would say out loud, "I will not let fear run this family." But the vows were thin against the way anxiety rooted itself in my chest. At night, when the house breathed and the moon slid across the blinds, a dull ache would start low in my abdomen, and I would tell myself it was nothing. I would tell myself I was overthinking. I would tell myself to rest. On a day that began ordinary, laundry in a basket, coffee cooling on the counter, I felt it. a small twinge that I could not write off. I paused at the sink and pressed my thumb to the place that ached, thinking, it will pass. I kept moving. I folded a shirt. I hummed the same hymn my grandmother used to hum, because it made me feel like there was an order to the world. For a moment, I believed the ache would dissolve into the rhythm of domestic life. Then the pain came like a hard, sudden truth, sharp, precise, and impossible to ignore. It took the breath out of me. My legs buckled. The world narrowed to the cold tile under my feet and the sound of the faucet. I reached for the sink for balance, and the room tilted, and then everything blurred. A sudden, cutting pain grips my lower body, and the world around me begins to tilt. The pain did not ease. It deepened. It spread. It felt like something inside me was tearing free, like the center of my body had opened and could no longer hold what it carried. I tried to breathe through it, but my breath stuttered, thin and broken. My knees hit the floor before I realized I was falling. The tile was cold against my skin. My hands shook as I reached between my legs, hoping, begging not to feel what I felt. Warmth. Wetness. Too much. I pulled my hand back and saw red blooming across my fingers. My mind went silent. Not empty, silent. The kind of silence that screams. Marcus, I tried to call out, but my voice scraped the bottom of my throat and came out as a whisper that barely crossed the room. I tried again, louder this time, but it cracked. Fear curled around my ribs, squeezing until I could not tell if the pounding in my ears was my heartbeat or the sound of my world splitting open. Blood began pooling beneath me, slipping across the tile in slow, terrifying lines. I pressed my palm over myself trying to stop it, but my hand just filled with more warmth that I did not want to acknowledge. My breath trembled out of me in uneven bursts. My vision speckled. The air felt thinner. Marcus. I tried again, and this time it carried enough panic to break the quiet of the house. I heard footsteps, first fast, then faster. He burst into the bathroom, eyes wide, unguarded in a way I had not seen in years. His face drained of color as soon as he understood what he was looking at. Danny, oh God, Danny. He dropped to his knees beside me, hands hovering, shaking, trying to touch me without hurting me more. I am losing the baby, I whispered, even though the truth was already written on the floor. No, no, stay with me, he said, voice cracking, breath stumbling over itself. He pressed towels against me, hands fumbling as he tried to apply pressure, his fingers trembling so hard the fabric shook. I am calling 911. He grabbed his phone, his voice shaking as he spoke to the operator, his other hand never leaving me. I felt myself slipping. Not physically, not yet, but emotionally. A kind of unraveling from the inside. I had failed. I had failed at the one thing I thought would save us. I whispered an apology, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Not sure if I meant it for Marcus, for God, or for the little life I was losing before I ever held it. Marcus pressed his forehead against mine, tears collecting at the corners of his eyes. Do not leave me, Danny. Please, do not leave me. His voice broke in a way that made something inside me ache even deeper. I had longed to hear that kind of vulnerability, but not like this. My breath shortened. My chest tightened. Each inhale felt like lifting a heavy weight. The room tilted and straightened and tilted again. The walls drifted away from me, as if they were no longer part of my world. My fingertips tingled. The edges of my vision began to fade into darkness. The sound of sirens arrived somewhere far away, muffled, like they were underwater. The paramedics' voices entered the bathroom in a rush of urgency, but I heard them as though I were listening through layers of cotton. She is losing too much blood. Pressure dropping. Stay with us, ma'am. Their words floated around me, detached from meaning. My heartbeat stuttered, slower, then heavy, dragging, as if each beat had to be pulled from deep inside my body. Coldness crept along my arms, up my spine, seeping into my jaw. I felt myself leaning sideways, though I was sure I was still on the floor. Sound bent in strange ways. Everything that used to be sharp became soft voices, light, even pain. I could hear Marcus shouting my name, but it echoed, like he was calling from the end of a long hallway. I wanted to answer him. I wanted to tell him I was still there. I wanted to say I was fighting. But my lips refused to move. My vision narrowed to a small, trembling circle. The paramedics lifted me onto the stretcher, but I could barely feel their hands. My head lolled to the side. The ceiling lights of the hallway blurred into streaks of white. Then came the moment. The moment when my body whispered a truth I was not ready to hear. My heartbeat slipped. A pause. A long, impossible pause. I took a breath that did not feel like mine. Then another that barely existed at all. Everything inside me loosened. Every fear. Every regret. Every desperate attempt to hold on to life. Cold washed over me. Silence wrapped around me. My last breath trembled out of my lungs. And I felt myself slip out of my own body, and then everything broke open. The first thing I noticed was the absence of pain. Not peace, not comfort, just absence. It was jarring, like a loud machine suddenly shutting off. I knew I was no longer in my body before I even saw anything. There was no heartbeat in my ears. No weight on my chest. No pressure in my lungs. Just a strange, quiet awareness. I expected darkness, but instead there was a soft, dim light, the kind you see under a closed door at night. It spread slowly, growing wider until I realized I was standing on something I could not feel, facing a long, narrow corridor. Not a dream corridor. Not a symbolic fantasy. It looked real, almost too real. The walls weren't made of stone or wood. They were made of moving images. Like clear screens playing memories I had forgotten, mixed with ones I had tried to bury. Some were so sharp I stepped back. I could see myself at age 7 climbing into a closet during my parents' argument. I could see my teenage self pretending to study so no one would bother me. I could see wedding day footage from an angle I did not recognize, as if someone had recorded it over my shoulder. I reached toward one memory and my hand passed through it, sending a ripple across the scene. My name echoed faintly from behind me, Marcus's voice, but it was distant, muffled, like it was underwater. I turned around, expecting to see him, but there was no one. A pressure tightened behind my ribs. Not fear, recognition. I was dead. The realization did not come with panic. It came with something more severe, clarity. The frantic noise of the miscarriage, the sirens, Marcus shouting my name, none of it touched me here. I could think without drowning. I looked down and saw my wedding ring glowing faintly. Not shining. Glowing. A steady pulse. When I lifted my hand, the ring emitted a soft throb of light, almost like it had its own heartbeat. That shook me. I knew nothing in the afterlife should feel familiar, yet the ring reminded me of real life, of my kitchen counter, of my bathroom sink, of all the small domestic places where I whispered prayers I never said out loud. A breeze moved past me, warm, gentle, but enough to raise goosebumps along my arms. It reminded me of Alabama summers when storms were coming. That same quiet electricity in the air. I wrapped my arms around myself even though I was not cold. As I walked deeper into the corridor, the memories changed. They were not childhood scenes anymore. They were marriage moments. Moments I had seen through pain, now replaying without distortion. Marcus sitting on the edge of our bed, rubbing the bridge of his nose after another long shift. Me misreading that exhaustion as rejection. Him reaching for my hand and me pulling away, pretending I did not notice. His face, hurt, confused, trying. Seeing it from outside my own emotions made my stomach twist. I whispered, I did not know. I did not see it like that, but the hallway gave no answer. When I reached the end of the corridor, it opened suddenly into what looked like a garden, but not the pretty kind people post online. This one felt lived in, touched, affected by years of emotional weather. Some flowers were alive, bright, open. Others were dead, brown, curled, brittle. Some looked crushed as if stepped on. Some looked untouched but hollow. My first thought was, this looks like I failed at something. Then something moved to my right. A small sound, like a footstep. I turned sharply. Standing a few feet away was a child. Not an angel. Not a symbolic glowing figure. A child small, around toddler size. Made of light, yes, but shaped enough that I could see the curve of their cheek, a tiny chin, hands curled close to the chest. My throat closed. I did not need anyone to tell me who they were. A sound came out of me I had never heard before, a broken gasp that cracked in the middle. The kind of sound a mother makes only once in her life. The child took a small step toward me. Their light pulsed gently, not theatrically, not dramatically, like a real heartbeat. My knees weakened. I whispered, "Baby," and my voice trembled so violently I could not control it. The child did not speak, but lifted both hands. In their palms was a small light, no bigger than a hummingbird. When the glow spilled onto my face, I felt a sensation I had no word for. It was not forgiveness. It was not affection. It was something deeper, heavier, more honest. Something that acknowledged both my love and my pain. Tears streamed down my face. Real tears. Warm. Constant. I wiped them, but more came. This was not poetic crying. This was the kind of crying that rips you open. "I am sorry," I whispered. "I am so sorry. I did not get to hold you. I did not get to protect you." My voice broke a second time. The child tilted their head, not judging, not pitying, just seeing me. Behind the child, I noticed something else. Vows. Literal vows. The words Marcus and I spoke on our wedding day, hanging in the air like faint ink on thin paper. Some were intact. Others were torn. Others were faded so badly I could not read them. My chest tightened. I knew which ones I had broken without even needing to read them. The child stepped closer. When they touched my hand, a warmth spread through my arm and hit my heart so suddenly I gasped. Not a gentle warmth. A piercing one. Like someone shining a flashlight into a dark room I had kept locked for years. I staggered a little as a realization slammed into me, sharp and unavoidable. I had been living my marriage through fear, not love. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of being unseen. Fear of saying the wrong thing. Fear of not being enough. And fear had made me wither. Not spiritually. Not morally. Emotionally. The garden around me shifted, some flowers brightening, others darkening, matching the truth hitting me. My breath shook. And then a voice, calm, close, unmistakably real, spoke behind me. "Danielle." I froze. Every part of me stilled. The voice was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was firm, steady, familiar in a way my soul recognized instantly. I turned slowly, trembling. And the air thickened with a presence that felt more real than any memory I had ever lived. The next revelation was about to begin. The presence behind me did not announce itself with thunder or blinding glory. It was quieter than that, heavier than that, truer than that. When I turned, I did not see a face. I saw a warm field of light shaped like a person standing only a few feet away. The air around him thickened, like standing close to a fire on a cold night. Not burning, but undeniable. The kind of heat that makes your body recognize something holy even before your mind does. My knees weakened. My breath trembled. My heart, whatever heart I had now, felt like it split open in recognition. Jesus. The word left my mouth without permission, without thought, without hesitation. It was not a guess. It was not imagination. When you meet him, you know. He did not move, but the light around him pulsed softly, like it responded to my voice. Behind me, the child stayed close, tiny fingers still curled around mine. Jesus spoke again, this time with a tone that felt like both truth and comfort pressed into one. "You have carried fear for many years, Danielle." His voice was not loud. It did not echo. It went straight into my chest like a memory of something I had forgotten. I swallowed hard. "I did not mean to live that way." "You did not intend it," he said gently. "But you allowed it." That sentence cracked through me. Allowed it. Not caused it. Not deserved it. Allowed it. I lowered my head, shame tightening in my throat. But he stepped closer, not walking, just appearing closer. And the shame eased under his presence like ice melting beneath sunlight. He lifted his hand slightly, and the garden around us shifted. The withered flowers began replaying scenes, this time sharper, clearer. I watched myself stand in the doorway of our kitchen, arms crossed, when Marcus came home late again. I remembered that night as one where he did not care. But through this replay, I saw the truth. Marcus looked exhausted. His shoulders drooped. He paused in the doorway and looked at me with regret already on his face. But I had not seen that. I had only seen the lateness. The scene dissolved and another formed. This time, our bedroom. Marcus sitting beside me asking, "Are you upset?" I remembered responding with silence because I wanted him to figure it out. Watching it here, that silence looked cruel. Not intentional cruelty, but wounded cruelty. The type that grows in marriages slowly enough that no one notices until something breaks. I whispered I hurt him. Jesus did not scold, did not condemn. His light did not flicker. You both hurt each other, he said quietly. But pain does not justify silence. My breath caught. I did not know how to speak without breaking. His light brightened, gently, but enough to make my vision swim. You believed speaking would break the marriage, he said. But it was silence that cracked the foundation. The child beside me tightened their fingers around mine as if agreeing. I felt tears gather again, not elegant tears, but hard ones, tight, stinging, choking. I wanted to be enough, I whispered. You were, he answered. But fear convinced you that you were not. He lifted his hand again, and behind him, the vows began to gather from the air, floating pages, glowing faintly. Some drifted downward like falling leaves. I recognized my own handwriting from our vow notebooks, the tight loops and nervous curls. My promises about patience, grace, listening, love. Some of them glowed brightly. Others dimmed, flickered, or split along the middle. Jesus stepped closer until his presence engulfed my vision, and my knees almost buckled beneath the intensity. Your marriage was not dying, he said. It was suffocating. That single sentence tore through me so sharply I gasped. It was not poetic. It was not symbolic. It was true in a way my soul recognized instantly. I saw moments where Marcus tried small gestures, quiet help, attempts at affection, but my fear swallowed them before I could see them. I saw moments where I withdrew so far he no longer knew how to reach me. Then I saw something that made my hand shake. A memory I had never seen. Marcus alone in our bathroom, gripping the counter, crying silently. Shoulders shaking. Head lowered. Mouth forming words I never heard. Lord, teach me how to love her, he whispered. I am trying. I am trying. My hand flew to my mouth. My entire body trembled. Jesus spoke gently. You believed you were unloved. But you were deeply loved by a man who did not know how to show it in the language of your wounds. The truth struck me so hard I felt myself sway. My wounds. My patterns. My fears. My marriage. Everything was laid bare at once, and the honesty of it felt holy. The garden grew brighter, not comforting, but revealing. Like someone turning on a light in a room I had lived in for years without realizing it was dark. The child tugged my hand and lifted their small glowing palms toward me. Their expression was not sorrow. It was understanding. Without speaking, they pressed their light to my chest. And all at once I felt it. The weight I had carried for years. The fear of not being enough. The fear of being abandoned. The fear of losing love. The fear of losing myself. It all rose like something breaking free from the bottom of a lake. I cried out, not quietly, not gently, a real cry, scraped raw from the deepest part of me. A cry that shook my whole being. Jesus stepped closer. His voice lowered, so calm it steadied my shaking. Danielle, love needs truth to breathe. I clutched my chest, tears running freely now. And you must return, he said softly. Return. The word hit me with both relief and terror. But I lost my baby, I whispered. The child stepped forward and pressed a warm hand to my cheek, so small, so light, but real. A voice clear, small, impossibly tender, spoke directly into my spirit. I knew you loved me. I broke. I collapsed. I sobbed with grief so real it shook the garden itself. The child rested their forehead against mine and whispered again. You can still choose love. Jesus' light intensified, bright enough to make the garden fade around him. It is time, he said. I shook my head. Please, not yet. His voice remained steady. You have seen what you needed to see. Now you must bring healing where fear once lived. Before everything shifted, before the pole began dragging me back toward my body, the last thing I heard was his final message. Go back and heal what fear tried to break. And then, the light snapped. The garden vanished. The warmth evaporated. I felt myself falling fast, like someone yanking me down a tunnel that tightened around my soul. Then, darkness. Cold. Silence. I did not return gently. I did not float. I did not glide. I slammed back into my body like someone dropped me from the roof of heaven into a collapsing house of flesh. The first sensation was pain, sharp, electric, slicing up through my spine like a live wire had been shoved into me. I arched on the table before I even opened my eyes. A violent jolt shot through my chest, and air punched into my lungs like a fist. My entire body convulsed. Someone shouted, she is back, keep pressure. Keep pressure now. My eyes flew open, but everything was a blur of white lights and frantic motion. The ceiling spun. Faces hovered over me, masks, bright headlamps, hands pressing hard on my abdomen. I could feel blood still sliding beneath me, warm and terrifying. My throat burned as a sound ripped out of me, part gasp, part cry, part desperate attempt to breathe. Cold air blasted into my lungs. Then another jolt of pain. Then another. A nurse leaned close, her eyes wide, her voice urgent but steady. Danielle, stay with us. You coded, but we got you back. Keep your eyes on me. I tried, but my eyes rolled upward involuntarily. My body trembled violently, like it was rejecting me, like it did not recognize my soul anymore. A doctor's voice cut through the noise. Blood pressure is rising, get another line in her arm. I felt a needle pierce my skin, then warmth flood my vein, then cold sweep across my chest as someone rubbed pads against my skin. My ears rang, high and shrill, drowning out every other sound until one voice broke through. Where is her husband? Bring him in now. The room spun again. My limbs felt heavy, numb, distant, like they were attached to me by threads instead of bone. Then I heard it. Danny? Marcus's voice cracked before he finished my name. I turned my head toward the sound. Not gracefully, but with a jerking, painful motion. When my gaze finally locked onto him, my breath caught. He looked wrecked, eyes red, face streaked with tears, chest rising in uneven, shaking breaths. He stepped close, hands trembling, afraid to touch me, afraid to hurt me, afraid to lose me again. Danny, oh God. Danny. He pressed his forehead against my hand, my cold, trembling hand, and sobbed as if something in him had finally broken loose. Stay with me, please, please stay with me. I cannot lose you too. His voice cracked on the word too, and my heart clenched so violently I gasped out loud. I wanted to speak. I wanted to tell him I hurt him. I wanted to say his name. But the moment I tried to talk, pain shot through my abdomen, sharp, hot, blinding. I cried out, reaching for anything to hold on to. A nurse gripped my shoulder. Do not move, your body is still stabilizing. My vision flickered. Black, then light, then black again. The beeping beside me sped up, too fast, frantic. She is tacky, slow her down. I felt a cold rush enter my vein, like someone poured ice water through my arteries. My heartbeat thudded painfully in my chest. I tried to breathe, but my breaths came in shallow, panicked gasps. Marcus cupped the side of my face with shaking fingers, whispering, I am right here. I am right here. Do not go anywhere. His touch, warm, desperate, familiar, anchored me to the world. The doctor leaned over me again. Danielle, do you know where you are? I blinked hard, breathing raggedly, and forced my voice through a throat that felt scraped raw. Hospital. Good, he said, nodding. You died for 8 minutes. We brought you back. You are safe now. You are with us. Stay awake. Stay present. 8 minutes. It echoed in my mind like a drum. 8 minutes. Gone. Dead. In another world. With my child. With him. Tears spilled sideways down my cheeks onto the sheets. Marcus wiped them with his thumb, his breath trembling. Danny, what happened? What did you see? I wanted to answer. I wanted to tell him everything. About the ring, the vows, the child, Jesus, his prayers he thought I never saw, the truth I had never known. But my body was too weak, my heart too overwhelmed, my mind too flooded. Another wave of pain hit, and my hand shot out instinctively, gripping Marcus's wrist with surprising strength. He leaned closer instantly. I am here. I am not going anywhere. Breathe with me. I did. Slowly. Painfully. One breath at a time. The machine steadied. The lights stopped spinning. The ringing in my ears softened into a dull hum. But inside my chest, something else shifted, quiet but undeniable. I had returned. But I had not returned the same. Not in my heart. Not in my truth. Not in the way I saw my husband looking at me now. I had to live differently. And I had to tell him the truth I saw. Not later. Not someday. Soon. But not yet. The room settled around me, filled with low voices, rustling gowns, rapid jotting on charts. And in that strange, trembling stillness, one thought echoed through me like a bell ringing from heaven. Fear did not bring me back. Love did. The light that wrapped around me didn't burst, it narrowed, tightening into a single path ahead. It felt like being drawn forward by a warm, living current, the kind that understood me more than I understood myself. I wasn't walking. I was carried, gently but with purpose, almost like a parent guiding a child who has been lost for too long. I could still hear the echo of the father's voice from behind me. Go. And tell them what you have seen. Those words pulsed through my chest like a second heartbeat. And as I moved forward, the brightness softened into a golden horizon. The warmth became physical again, air filling my lungs, weight returning to my body, the dull ache of the world's gravity pulling me home. My eyes snapped open. I was back in the hospital bed. A nurse gasped. She's responding, she's back. Doctor. A rush of footsteps, lights, cold metal instruments clattering. Everything felt too loud, too sharp, too real compared to the quiet majesty I had just left. My chest rose with a painful breath, and for a moment I panicked, thinking the flames would return beneath me. But the fire was gone. Only the memory remained. And then I remembered the children I had seen. The two little ones I had never met, but who had been waiting for me in eternity. My babies. The grief I had carried for years didn't return this time as a crushing weight. It came softly, wrapped in peace, like an answered question. For the first time since losing them. I wasn't afraid to remember. The room grew quiet. The doctor looked at me like I was something impossible. You were gone, he said softly, almost whispering to himself. We lost you. And then, you came back. I closed my eyes as tears slid down the sides of my face, not from fear, but from understanding. I know, I whispered. I know. Recovery wasn't instant. Heaven had healed my soul, but my body still had its limits. There were days I woke up trembling, unsure if I had really seen what I saw. Days when the silence of the bedroom reminded me of the cries I never got to hear. Days when I doubted myself. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the hand that pulled me out of the flames. I heard the voice that told me I still had a story. I felt the tiny fingers of the daughter who hugged me and said, Mommy, we've been waiting. And slowly, bravely, I began to talk. At first it was just to my husband. One night, after the kids were asleep, I sat beside him and told him everything: the fire, the accusation, the courtroom of light, the scroll with every moment I had forgotten. The guilt poured out of me like water from a cracked jar. I expected him to doubt me, but he didn't. He held my hand, his voice breaking. Then you have to tell others. God didn't bring you back for yourself. I didn't feel ready. Who was I to speak? I was just a woman who made mistakes. Just a mother who carried silent grief. Just a believer who thought she was doing enough. But heaven had shown me the truth. There is no such thing as doing enough. There is only surrender. The first time I shared my testimony was at a small women's gathering in our church. I stood there, hands shaking, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. The microphone felt heavy, like it carried consequences. But the moment I said the words, I died, the room went still. Women who had miscarried. Women who were carrying guilt. Women who had stopped praying because life had broken them. They looked at me like someone who had crawled out of the wreckage with proof that God was still searching for them. I told them about the flames. I told them about the accusations. I told them about the hand that saved me. And when I told them about the children waiting in heaven, children they never saw but still loved, the entire room began to weep. After that night, something shifted. My phone rang constantly. Messages poured in. People I had never met wrote to me saying, "Please, tell me what you saw. Tell me there is hope. Tell me I will see my baby again." Every time, I answered with the same truth. There is mercy. There is forgiveness. Heaven is real. And God is not counting your failures, He is calling you home. The more I spoke, the stronger the memories became, not weaker. The flames reminded me why I must not live lukewarm again. The light reminded me who pulled me out. And the children, they reminded me who I am becoming, a mother who will see them again one day. My testimony grew, not because I pushed it, but because people were hungry to know that God still interrupts human stories with His own. I began speaking at conferences. Women flew from other countries to hear what God had shown me. Some came with bitterness. Some came with fear. Some came convinced that their secret sins had disqualified them forever. But by the time they left, the bitterness had cracked. The fear had lifted. And their tears spoke the same thing heaven told me. There is still a place for you. One night after a conference, a young woman stopped me. She couldn't have been older than 22. She pressed a small bracelet into my hand. "This is for your daughter," she said quietly. "The one you'll meet again." When I looked down, the bracelet had the word joy engraved on it. The same name my little girl whispered to me in heaven. I broke down right there because it was God telling me again. Your story has purpose far beyond what you lost. And that's why I tell it. Not to glorify the fire, but to glorify the one who lifted me out of it. If you are listening to this right now, if you have carried silent grief, if you blame yourself for something you cannot undo, if you think God is disappointed in you, hear me. Heaven is far more merciful than the voice in your mind. God remembers every tear. Your children are not lost. And you, no matter how far you think you've gone, are still pursued by a love that refuses to let you die in the flames. I died with shame. I woke up in mercy. And I came back with a testimony that will outlive me. Because when God rewrites your story, you don't walk out of the fire the same person who fell into it. If this testimony reached you, if something in your heart pulled or trembled or broke while you listened, don't leave without responding. Stories like this aren't entertainment. They're invitations. If you've lost a child, if you've carried guilt, if you've drifted far from God without meaning to, if you've been living on the edge of the fire like I was, don't walk away quietly. Let this be the moment heaven interrupts your story. Before you scroll, pause. Breathe. Let God speak to you the way He spoke to me. And if you want more real stories, raw, unfiltered, heaven-sent testimonies that wake your spirit, shake your heart, and remind you of eternity, then subscribe now. Not because of the algorithm. Not because of numbers. But because one day, your story may be the one that pulls somebody else out of the flames. Click subscribe. Share this testimony with someone who needs hope. And remember, eternity is not far. Mercy is closer than you think. And God has not forgotten you.